There is so much more to life than what we see. What if we were capable of feeling it? This is the Inner Guide Podcast, a journey back to you. Welcome to the Inner Guide Podcast. I am Isabel Churchill, your host for this journey back to you. Today, we're talking about a subject that really have had a major change in my life. The inner child. The inner child is something that I was not really conscious or aware of growing up as an adult. And it's something that really had a huge impact on me when I took note of it or when I was made conscious of it. It started back in early 2016 when I knew I was not fully connected to my emotions. I remember not being capable of expressing emotions like a child could. And I just thought that it was kind of odd. I had gone through a lot of psychotherapy because having been diagnosed with depression in 2007, I had that experience, but I was still missing something. And that's when I met my friend Lou, which is with me today. And I'm super excited to share with Lou today. And Lou is somebody that I see as an expert with the inner child. And I definitely see her as the person who have helped me go through the inner child. So Lou, welcome to the podcast. You're my first guest.
Yay! Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah. And I think I'll give you the opportunity to maybe talk a little bit of how you got your expertise with the inner child and what is the inner child for you?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that you went through several years of therapy. Because for me, it was the same. I went through 4 years of therapy. I was there 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked with energy all my life. And a part of me always knew that the energy of my trauma is still controlling me. It's still in my body. And that all the talking about it helped making it conscious to my mind, but it didn't quite help to release it in my behavior, interacting with others.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And also I kind of felt that I was still possessed by the past.
Mm-hmm.
And controlled by the past. And so a friend of mine, he knew inner child work and he introduced me to it. And it was an eye-opening experience for me because it was kind of the missing link.
Yeah, I think it is for so many people. Mm-mm. How do you explain, how would you define inner child for someone that have no clue what we're talking about?
The inner child is many things. It's like a figure that you kind of have inside yourself, the kind of you that you were growing up, but also the kind of you that is in a way stuck in time, right? You had trauma, you experienced things. And also you kind of fragmentalized your personality to be loved as a child. It's that, but it's also something, an energy that is connected to your neurological system. It's your survival brain kicking in. And it's basically a pattern of energy inside of your aura, inside of your energy system. And it's kind of all of that. And it's also, to explain it very simple, it's what gets triggered when you interact with other people.
I was about to say, because my experience, so I was sharing that for me, like before I met you, I didn't realize how disconnected I was from my inner child. And I remember the first time you mentioned it, it was a trigger. It was basically shadow work for me. I'm sure some people are connected with their inner child and it's not shadow work for them. But for me, it was shadow work, which we talked a lot in the last episode about. And the first time you said, oh, I remember you said something like, we could work together to connect with your inner child. And like, my mind was like, no, that's boring. I don't want to do that. And there was so much resistance. Do you remember how I reacted? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, because I feel for most people, when you say you're traumatized as a child, they think of something really heavy.
Yes.
They think of, I don't know, abuse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also for a lot of people, it's going into the past. So a lot of spiritual people especially react to it in a weird way, because for them it's like, oh, it's not being in the present moment, but they kind of don't realize that their body and their energy is in the past.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Mm-mm. And
Yeah,
I
and
was.
so you don't feel you have to do it, but then you realize it, right?
Yeah. And it's part of the path forward to connect with it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
because I remember telling you I couldn't cry. Like I was like, no, I just can't cry. And I didn't realize how much it was connected to the emotional aspect. Like the inner child is really very welcoming his emotions.
yeah, it's not anything bad to experience them. And also, like, when you resolve, like, I always make the distinction between emotions. For me, emotions are something that comes from the past, right? Like something that you did not work on, or something that is still not resolved in your energy, in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the feelings that we have are like in the present moment. And if you're not attached to the past, you are able to experience feelings, and they come and go as you experience them. But if you are like stuck on something and attached on something, it's often like a trigger from the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, because I remember like the first time, I don't remember in detail the experience, but I do remember some of the feelings I had when I connected with my inner child for the first time through that adult life with you. And it was like everything seems gray. Everything was like so sad. There was like a sense of I close like it was there was a sense of I put that child in a box and I closed everything and set up huge walls so we never connect again. Do you experience that a lot with the people you work with? Is it often like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like the person knows something is not quite right,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Like for them, it's like, I think that in society there's also this concept of growing up, and like relating that to having less feelings or less joy and being more responsible. And I think that maybe that's why it seems so normal. But
Yeah.
when people start, or how can I explain, maybe like people feel things and they just push it away because they think, or they judge their feelings, like this is not appropriate, this is not good, I'm not supposed to cry, right? Like I'm above things, I don't cry, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm neutral.
Yeah.
But the inner child just doesn't care if it's appropriate to cry.
It's so true.
It just feels like crying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes life colorful, I think, to experience all these emotions, like a palette and variety of emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What
that's
I
what you reconnect to.
Yeah, yeah. And what you share makes me like when you think of a kid, he'll cry and 5 minutes later he's laughing. And there's like this such easy way to flow through the emotions, like fully express them, not hold on to them and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's like not judging what you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like I've been in the past judging my emotions. So I would like stuff them down and not address them, not bring it forth. And now it's a bit different. I feel like the work we've done together was just like opening a door and be like, okay, like we've removed that box that your child is in. Now it's up to you to nurture that child.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And it's also so nice that it worked so well for you, because you can imagine it like your inner child is like in a room, in a little crib, and you want to connect to it. Like you want to connect to it. But your nervous system has put up two bodyguards, and the bodyguards are protecting the door. And you are like, hello, I want to connect with my inner child. Yeah. But the bodyguards are like, well, you ignored us for several years. Why should we trust you? Like, why should we trust you to feel that feeling again? Like, what if something happens? If it is too painful? And so for some people, it takes a lot of time that their body and like nervous system rebuilds that trust to even access the feelings that we like put away in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. I feel like for me, my inner child would show up through pleasure and fun. And I didn't really have issues there, but it was really the emotional aspect of the inner child that was blocked, that was not allowed to express, basically. But I'm sure there's some people, it's the opposite. It's probably they're connected to their emotions, but they're not allowing themselves to have fun or pleasure. Do you notice that? Yeah. Is there like different aspects to it?
Absolutely. It's also that some people kind of get stuck with the inner child work. Like because you only have to go so far. Like at one point, the past is all worked through, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe you have stuff coming up, right? But it gets easier because it's in the present moment. Right. And that is why you have to teach your inner child that it doesn't only get attention when it's sad or when it's lonely, but you also give the inner child attention when there's joy, when there's happiness. So you create a balance for the inner child and like let it know that it's safe and looked at like anytime.
Right. That makes sense to me, because when I feel like, let's say that I pick an oracle card that says inner child, I know I'm like, oh, I haven't been playing much lately. Like it's right. Like it's in the present moment. I don't feel like the work is about the past anymore. I feel like I've completed that phase, but now it's about nurturing the inner child, like ensuring that I still keep this connection and keep a space to express that part of me.
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe if you could make like an example, it could be your inner child loves to dance, right? But the adult is like too embarrassed to do it. Right. So like doing the shadow work would be like feeling the feeling of embarrassment and like accept it and welcome it fully, like make some space for it. But then let your inner child dance. And at one point, you don't have to do like the shadow work anymore. You just need a little push to just dance, right? And have fun.
Exactly. Have fun. And the world is so serious right now that it's no wonder. I don't know if you've noticed that, but for me, I've noticed that the inner child is showing up more and more with the people I work with. And I just feel like there's something collective in the energy of the collective that is inviting us to bring back that inner child energy on Earth. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I feel that a lot. I think that we talked about joy, and And it's also like about feeling light and feeling innocent. It's about innocence right now. That's what I feel, that we are supposed to live that innocence again. And sometimes people are, how can you laugh when there is a war going on? Or how can you do this and that? There's a pandemic going on. But I think it's about being in integrity with your own joy and your own feelings. And that's what the inner child is all about, to be in compassion with others, but to truly very look at yourself and stay in your center, stay in your energy.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And I like the example you gave about dancing, because it is an example that came up for me. And another thing that came up for me a lot with the inner child was the singing. The singing. As a child, I used to always sing. And I remember my sister would get so annoyed with me. She hated when I sang because I would invent songs, and I was an amazing songwriter. But my sister hated it. And through my last experience I had of shadow work with the inner child was the singing. And because through my work, we've learned the light language, and light language is a lot of singing. And I felt it wanted to come out. There was this huge moment last year where we were doing some throat chakra healing, and it was just wanted to show up. And in order to evolve my abilities energetically, I had to deal with my shadow, with the inner child. And it was quite intense, actually. I did it by myself because you taught me so well, and I felt I could go through it. But there was moments where I was even alone, I didn't want to sing. I just felt so it was so hard. But it was actually my child not wanting to sing. It was not my adult self. It was a trauma of the child. So I had to really like you said, bring that sense of safety and bring that sense of it's okay. It's okay. And it's okay that people don't like your voice. It's not about that. It's about just expressing it, getting it out. And it took a little while, but I feel now I'm more and more comfortable. I mean, I would not go sing on the stage right now, just so you know, but but I can do language workshops and be quite comfortable with the singing and all that.
Yeah, I feel it's inner child work is very much about safety in your own body. As a child, your safety depends on others. And that is often a pattern that we bring into our adult life, that we think that our survival depends on how others see us or how we interact with others. And as a child, in order to be loved, because love means you are cared for, right? True. You fragmentalize yourself. You say, oh, my family doesn't like my singing, so our behavior, right? That you did not sing anymore, because the singing was out of your essence, out of your truth, your colors, right? But then some part of you decided, I don't feel safe to do that here.
It was not accepted. Yeah.
So I changed my behavior so I feel more safe, right?
That's so true. And this is really a good insight. What you're saying is that the child base is framework from the external people, because as a baby, we have no other mean to survive. People have to care for us. So we're really at the mercy of others. And when we become an adult, we have to change that framework. We have to change and realize, no, I can take care of myself. I can take care of my inner child. It's no longer for others to tell me that I'm a good singer in order to sing or whatsoever. But that's a good point, Lou. Switch that frame of mind that It's for you to give in. And that's one thing you really taught me, is that it's for you to nurture your inner child, like hug him, give him love, like through meditation, through
Yeah,
visualization. That's such a big part of inner child work.
absolutely. Like many people, when I work with them and I say, and now hug yourself,
Mhm.
they are so confused
It's
in the
awkward.
beginning. They're like, how do I do that? And then they put their arms
Uh,
around themselves and like, okay, whoa, what? Okay, oh, this feels good. Like they're so confused.
yeah.
But then they this form of touch is like so important for your nervous system and for your body
Mhm.
to like relax, because when you are triggered, when you feel those feelings, your
Mhm.
body feels all alone
Yeah.
because you don't take care of it. You're like you're not conscious about having that trigger, and the body feels like, oh, I'm lost here. Like what
Mhm.
is happening? Why is this pain coming up again and
Mhm.
again? And we're like not showing up for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's true because kids, even when you think of kids, and that might be the easiest way for our listeners to picture it, is whatever a child need, think that you still need that from yourself. And
Yeah,
when I think of a kid that like they need attention, right? Like they
yeah,
are always asking for attention. And when they're not well, they need that touch. Like how many parents have healed their child just by putting their hands on their belly, you know? And that's healing in itself. And I think there's so much to learn from that as an adult taking care of our inner child. Mm-mm.
yeah. I mean, imagine like having a feeling, and this feeling is like represented by your inner child, right? And imagine a child crying, and you just walk away. You
Yeah.
just go shopping or go eating or go, I don't know, doing what, go into a relationship,
Mhm.
like to not hear that child cry and not care for it. And that's really sad if you look at it like that.
It is, yeah, because most of us do that. Mm-mm. We mostly do that with our inner child. We just ignore him. Mm-mm. Yeah, that's a tough one. I have a tough questions and I don't necessarily have an answer, but I want to hear your thought about it.
Okay.
Why do you think the inner child is always with us, even as an adult?
I think that it's just um, a part of us, like a guide,
Mm.
like it's part of our energy body because it's like our base, like
Yeah.
our, like, you know, like a tree that has roots. It's
Yeah.
almost like the inner child is our roots in a way. And I think that in a way, like being childlike is also like very connected to our essence.
Mm. The innocence, like you said, right? Mm.
Exactly. And we connect it with child because it's the state that maybe we associate the most with it,
With us. I
but it's not
I get that.
necessarily childlike. Yeah.
Yeah, because like a lot of time when I work with people to develop their intuition, develop like their abilities, I bring them back as a child because they had those abilities back then. So it's almost like the part of us that was in integrity. It's almost like it's
Yeah.
us, it's the essence. I appreciate
Exactly.
that. Mhm. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
And it's also part of you that hasn't learned that there is something as being wrong or
Yeah.
not being good at something or not good enough. You just do things as a child. You're
Right.
just, oh, this is interesting and this is cool, and you
Mhm.
don't think about it, right?
That's true. And there's an aspect of unconditional love that is required as a child. Like that's how most parents will say they have their unconditional love toward their kids. So there's like this aspect to that connection, I think, that is within us. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's also that if you start doing inner child work, you also learn not to take yourself so seriously. And I think that you learn to laugh about yourself, like not in a condescending way, but in a very heartful and truthful way.
Yes.
And that's also like for me that connection to like innocence and to like that lightness that we associate with children.
Right. It's almost like giving us permission to celebrate and have joy.
Yeah.
Because often when I have like things that are really exciting, I just see my inner child like, yay, like jumping and screaming. And
Exactly.
That's
and
funny.
I think that's also so important, like to be aware of the inner child when we also like interact with others, and like not to be embarrassed about it, that you are like want to jump up and down and like scream in joy and stuff like that.
Right. And that's a point that I want to make too about the inner child is a lot of people talk about healing the inner child. But for me, it's almost like the inner child sometimes at one point doesn't need healing anymore, and it becomes a teacher. And it's almost to celebrate the inner child, bring out the inner child in you. There's no healing. So often people think of inner child work as just being healing the trauma, liberating, but it's more than that.
It is. And it's with everything that you heal, at a certain point you need to integrate it.
Yes.
Right. Like integration is a point of healing that is often overlooked. And that is where it's the same with like basic shadow work, like that there's this point where you need to jump off that train and just decide like to live your life and experience life and to experience things at the moment, because it can become an addiction, right? To always like go into that trauma, go into the inner child and stuff like that. But I feel by like integrating the inner child and celebrating it, you really honor yourself and you honor the inner child and the qualities about that it showed you about yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like for me, the inner child have, like you said, allow me to take myself less seriously. So when there's like really heavy stuff that happened or situation, like yesterday, I had a weird experience that I shared with you about the conversation, and the energy was weird. And instead of being like, because I could feel my frustration build, I was getting frustrated. And all of a sudden, I was so frustrated that it was almost ridiculous. And I started laughing, and it was like part of my child that was like, ha, this is hilarious. Like we don't understand each other. And it kind of allowed me to step back and be like, you know what? I need a timeout. And basically that's what we do with kids, right? I need a timeout. Like you have too much thing going on emotionally. Take a time out, go experience those emotions, and then come back in the conversation. And that's kind of what I did. So I feel like my inner child is now an ally into my growth, and it's allowing me to perceive things like from a complete different perspective and react differently to it also.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's also like what you did is basically a very important technique for inner child work when you interact with others. When you start this process, like you learn like not to react out of the trigger, but to use your free will, right? And so at the beginning, maybe you are not able to not be triggered and just feel the emotion. So the technique is to first remove yourself from the scene, and then go feel your feelings and breathe and change the pattern inside your body and the energy. And then you come back, and then you can talk to the other person in a very different way, right? Because the other person is like not responsible for how you feel. Like you are responsible for how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. And It's so empowering to do it that way. It just completely
Yeah.
changed my experience. Mm. Yeah. What
Yeah.
tricks do you have for people who are starting to reconnect with their inner child? What tips do you have for them? What would you like them to know?
Um, what would be very helpful is to put up a picture of yourself when you were a child.
Oh yeah.
Like, because a lot of people forget how they looked when they were a child.
True. Mm-hmm.
And it's also good for people that are like very hard on themselves.
Mm.
Like, if you have that picture of you, like all of us were like very cute as children. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
And it can help, for example, to like reconnect with that and see yourself
Mm-hmm.
as that cute being, because
Mm-hmm.
you are, like, in your essence you are
Mm-hmm.
still that, right?
That's so true.
and and what also is very important for inner child work in the beginning, to learn to close your eyes.
Oh.
Because a lot of people have, when they close their eyes, it's like their eyeballs start like moving around like crazy, and they are getting nervous and their energy is rising and the body is getting tired. So it's good to learn to close your eyes and be confident about that.
Okay.
And it's something that you can do 5 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't feel like much emotional stuff coming up, it helps build a connection to yourself and your nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
because you start like regain trust, because it's survival brain, right? When you close your eyes, you cannot see if something is attacking
Right.
you. You cannot see if there might be a trigger coming, anything like that. So just take 5 minutes every day, close your eyes, and maybe put your hand on your heart and start to connect, right?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Now that you say that, it's true. Closing your eyes is really hard for some people. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the major, or of the big things that people learn, like to be like to feel safe again when they
Mm-hmm.
close their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really think about it, our body is like very reactive when we are not conscious. It's
Yes.
like, if you maybe go about your day and try to notice how your body feels when you are triggered, because it gets tight, or you maybe get a feeling in your heart, that in your chest, that is like a bit tight or stuff like that, or for some people even their eyes starting to like flinch and stuff like that, and it's the nervous system having a lot of pressure.
Mm.
but
Wow.
but people don't notice because it's so normal for
Right.
them.
Right.
But if you try and close your eyes, you will
You start
become
feeling it.
more aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And we're almost at the end of this podcast. Is there any particular experience you had, even if it's your experience with me and the inner child, but any particular experience that you had in your work with the inner child that you would like to share with others? Anything that you work and that you think others could relate?
I think that um, for me, the most beautiful thing with all the clients that I had so far is like the point where they embrace their inner child for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like a very special moment for me, because it's like, it's interesting, because like your podcast has that name, but it's doing inner child work is like a journey back
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
yourself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it
And it's
is.
almost like they are like introducing themselves to themselves in a way. Like
Ah,
and that is so powerful, like realizing that there is nothing wrong with who you are. And we often, I think, feel that we have to heal in order to do this and that. But it's so beautiful for me when people realize that they are lovable, like as they are right in this moment, and that they don't have to do anything for that to be true or to happen, like in any way. Like, even if you have trauma, if you are sad, if you don't know what to do with your life, you don't know your purpose, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't know that, that unconditional love is always there, and it was always there. And the moment they realize it, that's like the most beautiful thing in the world.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think it's hard because when you haven't done the inner child work, it's terrifying to do it.
Yeah.
But if you knew how it felt when you've done it, everybody would jump at doing it. And that's the part, right? Like, so if somebody is still not sure of should I do it, what would be the way that you convince that person of doing inner child work? What is the top benefit for people?
I think that's maybe something that I experience with my clients. I often have clients that are like therapists themselves, right? And have done like a lot of courses, they have done a lot of work on themselves, but they cannot make that jump to the happiness. They are not able to just be happy. And that is what inner child work really teaches you, to be happy and be joyous again.
Right.
And I think there's a difference to maybe a lot of other things, because it's like your roots, like where you started with your body in this life as a little baby, right? As a little child. And so it can go very deep and help integrate stuff that with your mind you already know those things. But your body, the trauma in your body is like preventing you to integrate.
That's it.
So that's the big thing about inner child work, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. More happiness. If you want to bring more happiness to your life, you got to do some inner child work to some extent.
Exactly. And it's so simple. It's like super simple to do it.
And that's it. It is like it was. I know for some people, depending on the number of trauma you've had in your life, it can take a long time. But at the same time, it's simple. You have everything you need with you to do it.
Exactly. And yeah, you have to take, maybe for some people, you need to take certain steps with a practitioner, because, for example, if your biggest fear is to be alone, you cannot cure that by yourself in a way, because then you would be alone and your nervous system would go crazy if you would try to access the pain by yourself. But the inner child work, the practitioner is there to give you a start. Like, it's like
a safe space.
Like with a car, if you need a jump start with your car.
It's the jump start. I like that. Yeah, it gives you the power.
Exactly. Empowerment is inner child work is empowerment.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much, Lou, for sharing your experience and knowledge with us. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for giving me that space to talk about it. It's an honor, and I like it very much.
We can tell. So for everyone's listening, I'll put Lou's information in the description. So if you want to reach out to her, she is my expert on inner child work. So feel free to reach out. And I'm sure Lou will have you again, because I know you have inner child is only the beginning of so many things. And I know you have a lot of knowledge about manifestation, and that's definitely something I want to share on this podcast. So Lou might be our expert that we go to here and there for some subjects. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure sharing with you. I hope this gave you the insight and also the motivation to look into reconnecting with your inner child. There's tons of information online. You can reach out to Lou. She has programs that she does individual, but also group if you're more open to that. And I'm sure it all starts from the will, the wanting to do it. So that's how you're gonna get there, and it's worth it. It's worth every minute of it. Every energy you put into reconnecting with your inner child, I think, comes back tenfold. So I strongly recommend it. We'll talk again in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here, and you take care.